with the show. Hello, it's me, Peter, and today I'm talking to you about cricket. Of course, the cricket I'm going to be discussing with you today is the recently concluded second Ashes Test between Australia and England. Australia won by a massive 275 runs and have taken a 2-0 lead into the third Test in Melbourne. It's been a pretty miserable day of 5 days if you are an England fan. I'm sure, like me, you've watched plenty of this England team over the past few years. This week in Adelaide, though, feels another level of depressing. Let's have a look at a few of the reasons why. Beginning, once again, with the team selection. I discussed before how it seemed odd that we didn't pick Broad or Anderson at the Gabba, considering the conditions of the pitch and the weather early in the test. Here, we only need to look at how well Nathan Lyon bowled to suggest that Jack Leach should have played. I think it's becoming apparent that Silverwood and Root do not back our spinning options. I'm not saying that Leach is on Lyon's level, not at all, but I'm saying that Leach would have been useful for some much needed variety in our attack. In the 2017-18 Ashes, one of the fallouts from the series defeat was that we lacked different options with the ball. We were too one-pace. 4 years later, despite knowing that this had been a weakness last time England were in Australia, the exact same problems have resurfaced. Team selection has been an issue basically all of this year, right back to the start of 2021. Think back to that day-nighter against India in Ahmedabad where we got the selection horribly wrong. Are England relying too much on his historical statistics rather than the here and now? Is Silverwood backing the rest and rotation policy that clearly does not work? I don't know. And I don't really know what the solution is either. Anyway, another depressing factor for England fans was the classic, traditional, inevitable English batting collapse. After the pummelling that the Aussie lower order had given the English bowlers, Burns and Hamid had the absolute joy, of starting an innings as the natural light was fading and the dark was setting in. The conditions were not easy, sure, but just getting 10 between the two opening batsmen is not good enough. It's never going to win you a test, let alone draw it. Root and Malan were thankful to get off early, with lightning closing in quickly. Some amazing photos were coming out of that, by the way, of people that were on top of the Adelaide Oval and the lightning flashing in the background. Check it out if you haven't seen it. Day 3 started promisingly, with Root and Malan making another 100 partnership and surviving the whole of the first session. As mentioned by pundits across Australia and England, this was a day where conditions were good for batting. Not only that, but Cummins and Hazelwood were not in the team. The collapse from 149 for 2 to 236 all out was therefore extremely poor. What was most disappointing about this collapse, though, was the seeming lack of fight from the top order. I don't think it's an excuse to just say, oh, Australia are better than us, and they bowled in a way that put real pressure on our batsmen. And the lazy, poor dismissals from Butler, Pope and Hamid looked like dismissals from players that were already accepting a loss. I think England fans at this point understand and accept a difference in class between the two sides. We'd just like to see a bit of fight. And it did come, eventually, on the 5th day. Even then, though, the resistance only really came from Wokes, Robinson and the 207-ball marathon from Jos Buttler. Well played him. The question that I'm sure was on a lot of our lips, though, I know it was on my lips, why did it take until the game was essentially lost to show a bit of bottle? England may not have the batsmen that are as good as Warner, Labuschagne and Smith, but we can certainly learn a thing or two from them. They are not worried about the flow of runs peaking and then troughing, because they know that a scoring chance is always around the corner. England don't seem to have that mental attitude to stick it out over long periods, that over my dead body attitude. Root and Milan have perhaps been the exceptions to this, but we can't just expect to rely on them for runs. Look at Australia. Sure, most of their runs have come from the big three. Nevertheless, Head and Carey have chipped in with 50s, and Stark and Green have both got quick 30s as well. I will admit that Stark and the Aussie bowlers put a lot more pressure on the England batsmen than Anderson and the others managed to put on the Australian batsmen. We bowled too short for too long and were clearly worried about pitching it up, getting driven back, and seeing the run rate therefore go up. Glenn McGrath got it spot on in commentary. Maidens are great, but the bowler's job is to take wickets. I like the idea of the enforcer, bowling it short for a consistent amount of time and drying up one end. And Stokes is actually quite good at that job. He can go for a long time as well. However, there was no one else around to try and take and make inroads into the Aussie lineup. And when we did make inroads, my word were we sloppy. 11 drops, 4 missed run-outs and 2 no-ball wickets across these 2 tests. They are some damning statistics that have come out of the series so far. Across the first 3 innings of this series, England have spurned 17 chances. 17! They've cost a total of 235 runs, and that is absolutely, definitely proving to be decisive in Australian victories. So yeah, as you can see, this test has been especially depressing. Australia didn't have 2 of their best bowlers, and there's still 3 tests to go. And this was meant to be the test that we had the best chance of winning. And my bet is officially done. Catastrophe. It's hard to see where England go from here. Perhaps we didn't bowl too badly in the first Australian innings and Australia were just better than us. Perhaps Root and Milan can eventually turn their starts into hundreds. And perhaps we will take some spirit from the second innings resistance in this test into the third test. But you have to look at history to see that we are in a pretty tight spot here. England have never come from 2-0 down to win the Ashes at all in the 139-year history of the series. And only one team has come from 2-0 down before, Australia. They did it in 1936, 1937, and one of the main people responsible for this comeback was the legendary batter, Don Bradman. There have been some calls for change in the England team, but honestly, where can there be change that will truly improve England? The so far unused squad members left in Australia, it's full of players that have been to Australia and failed before, or players that have recently been dropped from the first 11. I like Zach Crawley. I think he's got a good technique for opening in Australia. And I also like Dan Lawrence and would be interested to see how he went batting at 6. Rory Burns, who's had a stinker so far, and Pope, who has not been much better, could be casualties going into Melbourne, and therefore Crawley and Lawrence might get a go. But are they going to win us matches against this Australia side? It seems utterly bizarre to me that we have taken the choice to fly the England Lions home. I thought that the whole point of them being there was to acclimatise and allow England a wider net of selection choices. Our history from being 2-0 down is so poor that Melbourne would have been a great opportunity to give someone new a go. Why not? I get the nervousness about exposing someone brand new to Test cricket to this Australia team in Australia in the famous Boxing Day Test match. They could be a rabbit in the headlights. But you see in other sports how fresh faces and new voices often can inspire new vigour within the team. Give someone with a fresh face a go. Why not? Someone not haunted by the last 2 test matches. Parkinson, Crane, Bracey, Ben Foakes. Tom Abel Harry Brooks, Saki Mahmood, they all have Big Bash commitments, so they are still in Australia. Get them out of that commitment. Get them in the team. It cannot be much worse than what we've had already. Anyway, that's all from me today. Please like, subscribe, comment on and share this video with your friends. Any interaction with the channel is always greatly appreciated. Until next time, sports fans. Bye.